Guys, in this video we'll talk about the 3 essential things that you need to know about Wuthering Waves based on the experience I have from playing in beta and the research I've done. The first thing to understand is about the characters we get in the game and how you should use them. In Wuthering Waves you get to use 3 characters at the same time, and that's your team. In combat, what you want to do is repeatedly switching between these 3 characters and activate their abilities to continuously deal damage to opponents. And the important thing in this whole mix is having characters that have good synergy between each other. Most of this aspect comes from auto skills, so an effect a character can activate when switching out. These effects can be of different types, and typically they depend on the role of the character. A main carry type of character like Jiyan will simply deal damage through his auto skill, while a more supportive one like Mortify will apply buffs to the active character through his. Note that the auto skill will only activate if you fill your concerto bar with your character. Simply put, this bar will get filled by attacks, so it's not like you can treat the supportive characters like purely off-field ones. They need to have an important on-field presence. Anyway, the basic idea here is to use a main DPS and then 2 supports to buff him and hide his weaknesses. These supports are not all the same. They can be more offensive oriented, more defensive oriented, or more utility oriented. For example, Mortify is sort of a sub-DPS because he can deal off-field damage through his ultimate. Virina is a more defensive support that will significantly buff her teammates but also heal them. And then you have a character like Jiyan that is weaker on the offensive side but offers even more defensive utility and also grouping utility. Having said this, I don't expect people to be able to make this type of composition consistently at the start because we won't have many characters to start off. This becomes more of an issue in the tower endgame mode where you'll need several good teams to be able to clear it. So at the start it will be a struggle, but long term this is what I expect compositions to look like. In this regard, it's a must to make the right decisions and build a strong, diverse box, and this brings us to the second point of this video, the pull strategy. If you're enjoying this video, please subscribe to my channel because I will keep making Wuthering Waves content in the future. Now, in terms of banners, Wuthering Waves is being quite generous at the start. We're getting a beginner banner that will allow us to get a guaranteed random standard 5-star after 40 pulls. Then after 80 pulls in total, we can pick a standard 5-star of our choice. This 5-star will be Virina and Jiyan, so the supports we talked about before, and then Calcharo, Encore and Ling Yang, all 3 of them being main DPS mainly. After these 5, the best choice from a meta perspective is probably Virina, that will be a staple support in most of the teams of the game. For one, she offers exceptional damage amplification through all of her buffs, and she can also heal the whole team, so she can cover 2 roles basically. Compared to Virina, Jiyan is probably a weaker alternative because her offensive buffs are more restricted, her defensive utility takes a lot more time to build up, and while she provides grouping through her ultimate move, a free-to-play character we get at the start, Yang does basically the same. She's not bad, but just a worse option compared to Virina. Then you have the main DPS, Calcharo and Encore are potentially very good, very strong in the meta, but they need some specific supports to be that great. Specifically, Calcharo ties well to Yin, a limited 5-star we'll get in the second phase of the first patch. Ling Yang is at the moment a bit behind in terms of damage output, and in my experience he also feels quite clunky to play, so I wouldn't quite recommend him unless you really like him. So what I will do from a meta standpoint is using the guaranteed pull to get Virina. If you manage to get her before that, then you can pick between Calcharo, Encore and Jiyan. Personally, between these 3, I would either pick Calcharo or Encore because, as I mentioned before, I don't love Jiyan from an offensive standpoint, and in a game where the endgame is focused around the idea of hitting specific damage thresholds within a certain time limit, that's not ideal to me. Then the other relevant banner at the start would be the limited banner, with the first limited character being Jiyan, a very strong DPS that excels in AoE scenarios. Now, when it comes to limited banners, it's a bit vague because starting characters are subjected to future power creep pretty easily, so Jiyan might get power crept by 1.3, who knows. So usually I would suggest to be cautious, but not this time because this banner has incredible 4-stars. In particular, Mortify is one of the stronger supports we'll have at launch, with incredible synergy with Jiyan specifically. Tajin is also featured, and she's a main DPS that can be a one-man army in many scenarios. So by pulling on this banner, you can potentially make 2 cores already, and that's too much to refuse to me. Next, a few tips about the ecosystem, so the build system of Wuthering waves. Echoes are monsters you kill in the overworld and then absorb. After that, you will be able to keep them through the character build page. By doing this, you will get stat bonuses and set bonuses, and this is very important. I'm not exaggerating if I say that if you can make a proper echo build, you won't be able to clear the endgame, like nothing else matters. This echo thing is crucial. Now, echoes are pretty fun as well, because you can also summon them to use their abilities in combat, but the stat thing is the most relevant part of the deal, for sure. Basically, while these abilities can have pretty useful applications, getting good stats for your character definitely takes priority. So between an echo with bad stats but a good ability and an echo with a bad ability but good stats, definitely take the second. But how can we get these echoes with good stats? Echoes have different rarities, and the higher the rarity, the higher the stats, obviously. Generally speaking, the echo rarities you'll be able to get in the game will depend on the stage of progression you're at a specific point. I'm talking about the data bank, a system that is similar to the Pokédex from Pokémon. By finding new echoes, you will receive experience for your data bank, and the higher your data bank level, the easier it will be for you to find the high rarity echoes. So the one thing you must do at the start is exploring the world to find as many different echoes as possible to get to a high data bank level and effectively open the doors to the end game of Wuthering Waves. It also helps that, to me, that's one of the funniest things about the game, just roaming around, finding all the different monsters. That was the most exciting thing for me to do in beta. Anyway, there are 4 different rarities, but it might take you a bit to get a lot of echoes of the highest one. And that's why I don't necessarily recommend to only level up the highest rarity of echo, because if you do that, if you wait that long, you might struggle in the early stages of the game. So I at least suggest you to level up the 3rd rarity a bit in the earlier stages to make your character stronger and to progress more smoothly. Now let's talk about stats a bit. Echoes have main stats and substats, and the main stat depends on the cost of the echo. That's right, other than having rarities, echoes also have costs. The cost is basically a grade that determines how special the echo is, and the higher this grade, the more valuable the main stat they will have. But that's not the only thing to keep in mind, because your character has a cost limit, and once you reach that limit in terms of echo, you won't be able to equip anymore. So in a way, picking the right echo becomes kind of strategic, because you have to balance the quality of the stat with the total cost you have. In this whole equation, there are also the set effects the echoes have that will require you to have 5 echoes of the same type to enable the full effects. What to do? The first thing to know about is that the maximum cost your character will be able to keep in the endgame is of 12. Second, the echoes can be of 1, 3 or 4 cost. If you pick 1 4 cost, 2 3 cost, and 2 1 cost, you will be able to pick 5 echoes for the set effects and also match exactly the 12 cost. And this is the lineup I would suggest as a baseline. Also, depending on the cost, echoes have access to different types of main stats. So for example, the 4 cost has access to crit stats, the 3 cost has access to damage bonus stats, and the 1 cost only has access to attack percent, HP percent, and defense percent. But pay attention here, just because an echo has unique access to a specific main stat, that doesn't mean you should chase that. For example, from what I've seen, getting a damage bonus main stat on a 3-star echo isn't necessarily better than getting an attack percent one. But this is all optimization stuff that can vary depending on the character, team, weapon, so I won't talk much about this. As I mentioned before, echoes also have substats, and you can get them by leveling up the echo and using the tuner item. Substats are probably the grindy part of the game, because there are a lot of them that you can get, and so optimizing for the best ones will take a long time. At a glance, it doesn't seem that bad, because other than the obviously great crit stats, you can also get some damage bonus stats that should be good. The problem is that these damage bonus stats only buff a specific type of damage, which would be normal damage, heavy damage, ultimate damage. Since Wuthering Waves characters can be very specialized in terms of how they deal damage, a lot of these damage bonus stats can be low value for them. So yeah, it will take a long time to min-max, but sadly that's a given with these games. And I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe and also go check the video analysis I made about the endgame of Wuthering Waves. Bye bye.